Okay, good morning. So we're up to Siman Shin Aleph Halacha Membeis, Sif Membeis. Hamoisi Tefillin b'Shabbos b'Bizoyin. Someone's walking on Shabbos in a public place, and he sees a pair of tefillin on the ground, b'Bizoyin, in a disgraceful manner. B'Makom she'ein mishtamrim, where they're not protected, they're not guarded. Im yesh sakona, if it's a time of danger, she'gozru shelo laniach tefillin, the Gentiles made a gezeri and we're not allowed to wear tefillin. Machasan v'hoylech loy. You cover them over to treat them a little bit more respectfully. V'hoylech loy, then you go on. V'mein sakon, and if there's no sakon and you want to take them in but you can't carry, so what do you do? Im yesh bohin retzuos, if there are straps to the tefillin, the retzuos, she'bekach nikar shem tefillin v'loy k'miyas, that then through that you'll be able to recognize that they are proper tefillin and they're not just kamiyas, which are sometimes made in the shape and the form of tefillin. Vein kashurus sheyochel elavshon, and they're all tied. The retzuos are tied to the tefillin so that you can actually wear them. Machnisun zug zug derech levisha ad sheyachnisim kulan. You've got several sets of tefillin there, just lying around in the forest or in the park or in the street. So you put on a tefillin shel rosh, you put on tefillin shel yad, and then you walk them home, you go back and you keep doing that until you bring them all in. V'im hoyu rabim, and if there are so many, shelo yaspik lelavshon, that you won't be able to manage to wear them all, v'lachnis and zug and bring them all in, so then yachshich aleim ad alayla v'yaviem, then you wait till nacht, you wait till Motzei Shabbos, and then you bring them in all in. V'im yori lahachshich mipnei listim, if you're worried to stay there because of bandits and it's in an unsafe place, you can bring them all in a Derabonan way, where there's Issa of Hotzah is only done in Derabonan and not a Deraisa way, i.e. you move them in less than 4 Amos at a time. Or that you sort of pass them along, and thereby no one is doing a havara of more than 4 Amos, where again that would not be an Issa Deraisa way of carrying. Okay, let's do the Mishnah Berurah. Membeis. Membeis. Sif Cotton Kufnan Hay. Shegozul Shelo Laniach. That you're living in a time, in a place, sadly, where they didn't allow you to wear tefillin. And not only that, that you can't even carry them. Why? Because if you're found, picture Nazi Germany. If you're found with tefillin, it's a sakona, it's a danger. So in that situation, you just leave it. But if there's no sakona, there's no gezerah not to wear, so then it's a shaila of hilchos Shabbos, not of sakona, and therefore you can bring them in. And you've got retzuos, says the Mishnah Berurah Kufnan Vav, shem tefillin v'lo kamiyin, and that shows you that they are tefillin and not kamiyin. Because if there are no retzuos on them, Amrin and the Shema Kamiyan Hain. It could be that these are Kamiyan, these are amulets. The Torach Adam Lefa'amim Lasus Kamiyash Kein Tefillin, because sometimes people make Kamiyas in the shape of Tefillin. V'naf Kamina, the difference would be She'ein Tzorech L'Shamron L'Hachshich Alein Klal. Because if they're Kamiyas and they're not Tefillin, then there'll be no need, there's no Shemus issue. There's no Bizoyim because they're not, Dvarim Shebekdusha. But Kamiyas have Psukim and have Shemus Hashem. So if you look in 108, he says 108, U'mashe'ein chayev lahachshich aleihem, afim heim kamiyim, machmas shemus hakodesh haksuvim bohem, b'yeh b'shalat shuv zikrus Moshe, she'im lo yachshich aleihem, ein b'zeh ele gram mechika. If you just leave the kamiyas there and it rains or it gets moisture or something, you're not directly causing shemus. You're not causing mechikas Hashem, but it's just indirect. And therefore, to avoid an indirect form of mechika, we're not worried about. Okay, let's carry on. Nowadays, people don't write kamiyan in the form of tefillin. And therefore, if you find tefillin even without retzuos, you have to assume they're tefillin, and therefore you have to be machshich and wait with them until Motzei Shabbos to bring them in after that. Kufnan Zayin, Vehin Kashuris, the retzuos are tied together to tefillin. Rotzolema Shebereish Yesh Kesher Shel Rosh, V'chein B'Shel Yad Yesh Kesher Shel Yad, Mesukin Karayu. The retzuos are attached properly, like we know. Lafi Midasa, according to your measure, V'lo Godel Yosef, they're not too big i.e. you're able to wear them. But if you've got just a retzuas there, and they're not tied to the tefillin, you can't make a kesher on Shabbos. So then you won't be able to bring them in. A pair at a time. And then in that situation, you have to wait till Motzei Shabbos and then bring them home then, or bring them to a safe place then. Zug zug, Ratzolema, tefillin echot shel yad al hayad v'chein echot shel rosh al harosh. Machnis ad mokum hamishtame v'choletz. You take one set of tefillin, like one shel yad, one shel rosh, you bring them into a safe place, and then you take them off, you go back, and you just carry on doing that until you brought them all in. Interestingly, in 109, he says, surely these tefillin are muktzah? What about the problem of muktzah? So if you look in the second paragraph of 109, he says, well, the Indian issa muktzah betiltel tefillin kosav le'el in the Bihalocha, but a come on and further on in Shinches, which deals with muktzah, shenechliku achreinim dinin klishim lachtel issa. There's a machlekas whether or not tefillin has the status of a klishim lachtel issa or klishim lachtel heta. There's machlekas. We'll get there in Hashem. V'tzidet sheyesh lahakol b'zeh b'shas hatchak. And therefore there is room to be makel. That's why, for example, if you've got your talis bag with your tefillin all together and you want to access your talis on Shabbos, even though it might mean sort of moving your tefillin, that's allowed because that's a tzorech. Because the etzem. What do you mean? In a case where just generally, okay, so then in that scenario, you're allowed to take your talis, even though it might mean moving the tefillin. And so let me just finish this and I'll come to your point. For Chazon Ish, and the Chazon Ish Paskins, and also it's brought by Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, if you find tefillin on the floor, let's say at home, in your own home, one of the kids knocked the tefillin or something and it's on the floor, let's say you left your talis bag and your tefillin on one of the chairs, so you're allowed to move it. But just sit on that chair for chedin klisha melachtel issa, like because the din of a klisha melachtel issa is mutar l'tzorech mekoyim v'gufa, and therefore you're allowed to sit on it. Okay, fine. So that's if you find your tefillin at home or something like that. So that takes the issa muksa is moved away because there's machlikas anyway what the status of the issa of muksa of tefillin is. Yossi, what was your question? What about hefsa meruba?
Yeah, you're saying it's muksa, but why?
So this is the first. It's not hefsa for you because you're walking in the park. Who's moment? They're not your tefillin. You just find a whole bunch of tefillin in the park.
They're precious. They're like
but whose loss is it? You're saying it seems to be the focus here is not so much your hefsid, but the focus here is the bizayin of the tefillin. Yeah. Okay. So again, back to Kufnin Ches, Zug Zug, you put on the tefillin shel yad and then the tefillin shel rosh, and you bring them in to Mokum HaMishtama v'choletz. V'achka chezu machnis ba'ifin zeh, Zugach, and then you bring the next pair of tefillin. V'af t'kaim l'am b'Shabbos lav's man tefillin hu, even though really Shabbos is not a zaman tefillin, we paskin. Mikol Mokum k'derech shu levish b'chol, lav b'chlal masuhi, and a tachshit. And true, it's not a zaman of tefillin, but it still doesn't mean that it's a masui, and it still has the status of a tachshit in which I'm allowed to wear on Shabbos. Va'al Bal Tosif, what about Bal Tosif? Right, so he says, Eina over, kiven she'eina mechavim b'livishos l'shem mitzvah. I'm not intending to wear this l'shem mitzvah, and therefore there's no problem with Bal Tosif. Kosev Amogan Avram. To Isha, what about a woman? Can a woman put on the tefillin even though she doesn't wear it during the week? Or at all? To Isha, it says, tefillin asur lachnisim b'Shabbos after malbash. A woman who finds tefillin, if for her it's also to bring them in this way, for her to put on the tefillin, one on her arm, one on her head, to kiven de'ein regila lahanichem b'chol havilah kamasur legabo. Since she wouldn't wear them during the week, therefore for her it's considered a masui and it's not a tachshit, and therefore it would be considered carrying. V'yesh ma'achrerim cholkim alav v'sfir lehu. To kiven the Medina, the Gemara, ein alem issa b'zeh, and other achrenim argue, and they say no, there's no issa for a woman to wear tefillin. Rak d'lechatchila ein nochen lahanicha, and it's just not correct for her to put on tefillin for all the various reasons. Lo mikri masur legabo, and therefore, since it's not osa, it's just not an appropriate course of action. Therefore, it's not considered a masui, and therefore, in a situation like this, it would be okay for her to bring them in. They argue about this. Similarly, if a woman goes out with a talus which has got tzitzis on it, it's not just a cloak that she wears, but it's a proper talus. Remarkable. A woman wears a talus on Shabbos in the Shusarabim. She's carrying. It's a chiyav chatos for the tzitzis sheboy. To kiven deinish regila leilich betalis bezeh. Have a masul legabo. Since a woman does not ordinarily wear this talus, therefore it's considered not a malbush but a masul. The gambazeh yesh cholkim olav. And there's also debate about that as well. Okay, shelo yaspik. So if a person realizes there's so many pairs of tefillin there that there's no way he's going to manage to put on a shalyad, a shalrosh, bring them in, go backwards and forwards, and his shelo yaspik. Hainu kivin sheba oidyoim belav hachi lo yaspik ho eis lavi kulon lo yibosh klal ele yamtin shomad lalala vishmer meviyim. Better to wait by this big pile of tefillin and then bring them all in, just carry them all in on Motzei Shabbos. Okay, Mem Gimel. Hamoitz sefer Torah basodeh. That if a person finds a Sefer Torah abandoned in the field on Shabbos, what to do? How do you bring it in? So if it's not a time of shmad, of gezerah, he can stay there. If there's no, or it's just there's no danger of bandits, it's a safe place, then just wait there, and you look after the Sefer Torah, which means you wait there until night. Lashon HaRambam is sakana manicha v'hoilech. That if it is a sakana, then of a sakana. But if there is a sakana manicha v'hoilech, then you can carry on. You don't have to endanger yourself for the respect due to a Sefer Torah. But if there's no sakana, then you wait there until Motzei Shabbos and then you bring it in. V'im hoyu geshamim yardim, if it's raining. And then you're worried that the Sefer Torah is going to get ruined. Misatev ba'or, you can sort of wrap it in your begodim, and that thereby sort of bring it in by wearing it sort of under your clothes. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Geshamim Yaradim Shetiskalkal Sefer Torah Tirul Lisatev. They allowed you to wrap it. And then you wrap more clothes on top of you. And then you can walk into the city or to your home or to a safe place. Because that's allowed. The Sefer Torah shouldn't get ruined. Okay. Next Seif. Mem Dalet, there's no Mishnah Berurah on it, just the Mechaber. Habola Hatzil Kelov Mipnei Adleika. If a person wants to save his assets, his kelim, from a fire, Loivesh Kol Mashayachol Lilbosh. He's allowed to, there's a fire there and he wants to protect all his clothes, so he can put on as many items of clothing as he wants. Va'itef Kol Mashayachol Latef, and wrap himself with as many wrappings as he wants. Or Paishet V'chayzev Loivesh Amoitz, and he can go out and then take all his begodim out and then go back in and get the rest, etc. Okay, Memhei. Mishe Noshru Kelov Bamayim. Someone whose kalim became saturated, they became wet because of with water. He's allowed to continue walking and he doesn't have to worry about it. He doesn't have to worry that maybe he's going to come to be seichet, to do schita, to squeeze the begodim. But you can't hang them up to dry. People will think people will think he may have done the laundry on Shabbos, and there's an Issa Chazal of not hanging up your laundry, or even if it's something which became wet on Shabbos because you got caught in a rainstorm, that you can't hang it up. That's the Gezerah, the Marasayin. Also, even to hang it up in the privacy of your bedroom or in a room where no one sees, the public don't see it, even that is also because Chazal will go to Marasayin even in Chadri Chadarim. The whole prohibition is only to hang them up to dry on Shabbos itself. But if on Erev Shabbos you've got clothes on the laundry line, that's not included in the Gezerah, and you don't have to remove them on Shabbos itself. Okay, let's do the Mishnah Berurah. Kuf Samach Aleph. B'mayim. So your clothes got wet with water. Bein alidei mei geshamim, whether you got caught in a rainstorm, Oishenofel benahar, or you fell into a river, or whatever the reason was. When it's nachlechu kelov, and then your clothes got soaked. Hoylech bohem, you're allowed to carry on walking. Shaloi osru al ha'odem ha'begodim shaloi vesh eison, because Chazal never answered the clothes that you were wearing. Va'afilu im noshru kelov levad, hu leivshon mitchila mahalich bohem. And even if your kelim alone you can continue working them. And that lecher means you can continue wearing them, even though that's only if you haven't got any other clothes. But if you've got other clothes, then obviously you should change and avoid wearing clothes where there's a possible issue of schita. Now, interestingly, just number 111, he says here, "Avalataltel begodim retuvim." To carry clothes which are very wet, kashein the lotion when you're not wearing them. Kosav haramola alon. We're going to get there tomorrow, Mr. Shem. She'asa, to carry wet or saturated towels or clothes, there is an issa to carry them or to handle them. Shema yovel seichtom, because you might come to squeeze them. V'haseichet begodim bohem Mishnah Berurah lekamon. The Kosav Mishnah Berurah b'shem harambam milchas Shabbos shechayev mishum melaben. If you sort of do schita on begodim, there's a problem of melabin, of laundering, and therefore you've got to be very careful of not. So we'll get to more details of this. Now, what if your socks get wet? Yeah, I remember once walking back from central London on a Friday night years ago, and it did not stop raining from the moment I left until 2 hours later. I got back to home, and I mean, just saturated. So what in a situation where your socks are wet? So every step is a schita, right? So what are you going to do? So psik reisha sheyischita machmas kovet gufay. It's a psik reisha that you're doing schita with by your foot pressing on the socks. Kosav minchas Shabbos shemut lelechesbo. You don't have to stop and take your socks off, right? You're allowed to carry on walking. Why? Because he says over here, it doesn't sort of differentiate and say that if there's a psik reisha that there's going to be schita. He doesn't say that. And the reason why we're makel, this schita is only os midrabanan. You're not really going to sort of squeeze it out in order to drink the water. First of all, you're doing it in an indirect way. Number one, plus the water that's coming out is going le'ibud. You're not collecting it. So Chazal will never gozer on the clothes that you were wearing. Okay, let's just finish off Memhei. Kuf Samach Gimel. V'lo yishtachem. You shouldn't hang up wet clothes on a laundry line. When it's dafka, when it's saturated with water. But if there's only a little bit of water that's gone on them, that's allowed to dry them out. Because if there's only a little bit of water on them, no one is going to be chayshish that you laundered these clothes. It doesn't make a difference how much water is on it. You can never hang up clothing on the laundry line on Shabbos. 114, if you look at that, that's going to etc. Whether the rower can't see how wet or how dry they are. Now, the next one is a very interesting one. The next paragraph. What about clothes which the derech is not to launder them, i.e., clothes which only have dry cleaning, or other items of clothing which you don't normally launder? So if you've got items of clothing, let's say a suit, you don't put it in the washing machine. Let's say some suits you can, but most suits you take it to the dry cleaner. So then, to hang up a suit on a laundry line, according to Rosh Hashanah and also and Rabbi Moshe, seems to be that since people are not going to be chayshish, you did the laundry because you don't normally launder your suit in this way, then it would be okay. That's quite a useful thing to know. Okay.
Let's say a raincoat in a room where you know it's going to dry quicker.
So what I do is, to avoid this problem, if I get caught in a rainstorm, which in London is not uncommon, so I would hang it up on the back of a door in an office in the house, just whatever. I wouldn't hang it up over where you would normally do it. Let's say over a bath or you've got a laundry room or something like that. If you do it in a room where there's no one's going to be choshish, you dry cleaned it, and it's clear that you're hanging up there, and it's just that you got caught in a rainstorm and you're just hanging on the back of a door where it will dry, let's say on Friday night in time for Shabbos morning, that would be okay. Alright, let's just finish off. Kuf samach daled. Va'afilu begodim hamalafavim b'hem tinokus. If you've got begodim which babies soiled, shekerin vindalin, which he translates there as chitulim, which are diapers, nappies. That's okay if they're soiled. In other words, you haven't cleaned them with water, but they're just wet because of the mess that the child has made. But basically, even in the courtyard, in the heat, they've got the mess that the kid left on it. Sorry, muchach. It's muchach that you haven't laundered it because it's soiled from what the child did, and therefore there's no chashash that you're cleaning it. The efsha afilu ein aleim tzah, even if there's no tzah on them, im lo nishre kulan b'hameraglaim, lo nishre kulan b'hameraglaim. Takol yodim shederach hatanokas lashtin. They know that's what happened to this diaper. U'bavad shelo yishtachin neged hatanud. Just make sure that you don't put it too close to an oven. B'makom sheyatz ledes b'echud lekami. Okay. B'chadri chadarim. Chazal don't distinguish between a public place and the Chadri Chadarim. The concern is only where people might think you came to do an Issa Deraisa Kagain Khan Bekibus. For example, laundry, that's an Issa Deraisa. Issa Asa Afilu B'Chadri Chadarim. Masha Enkim B'Dovashu Issa Drabonon Afilu L'Masha Yisveru Haroyim Lo Echmiru L'Esa B'Zeh Ki Im B'Fahesia. But if for a Drabonon, then it would only be a problem to hang them up in a public place. V'Huva Dovazeh B'Magan Avram B'Taz Oshar Achronim. Okay, Kuf Samach Vav Asa. What is that going on? Yeah, b'chadri chadarim she'ein shomroim also. Alkein aluntis she'meviim be'erev Shabbos. If you've got a bath towel which you bring, or any towel which you bring on erev Shabbos, she'olach mebeis hamerchatz, that you took it from from your erev Shabbos mikveh or shower or bath. If you hang it up before Shabbos, lo yamtin ad achashkia. Don't wait till after shkia, and that way you haven't got a problem. Fa'ayin lekam b'siman shimnan beis to mukach sham. If I need this towel tomorrow, then I can be makel to hang it up on ben hashmoshes, even if it's after shkia. You just got to be careful not to wring it out, not to do schita on Shabbos. And then we finished off and we said that if you've got clothes hanging on the laundry line from before Shabbos, you don't have to remove them. Says the Mishnah Berurah, even if it's in a very public place where people can see it, because the whole takana, the whole chashad is when you hang it up on Shabbos itself. Because the chashash might be that maybe you laundered them today. Because if I would have laundered them yesterday, I would have hung them up yesterday. People won't realize that necessarily that they became saturated on Shabbos. Okay,